call the meeting to order and take attendance. Gina Stino.
Gina Stino, present.
Mike Barclay.
Mike Barclay, present.
Mark Cameron.
Mark Cameron here.
Thanks. Fran Collins. Diane Kennedy.
Diane had a work meeting tonight.
That's right. She did send me something. Mark Maggi. Mary McGoldrick.
Mary McGoldrick here.
Meg Wheeler. And me. I'm here. So we do have a quorum, which is great. So the first order of business is on the agenda is the reserve fund transfer. So Chris, why don't you walk us through it, and as others arrive, we'll get them in and see what we need to do.
Nick,
Can you start with the balance on the reserve fund right now?
Sure. Nick's on his way in. Oh, here he is. All right. Hold on, let me get Nick, and then Fran just joined. Fran in. Fran's up, Brian's up, and I just I'm trying to get Nick to there. Nick's coming on. So you have the whole balance. You haven't used any money. $224,000 and change or something like that. I don't have the exact amount, Rob, but I could double check it. But you haven't spent any money yet. So.
Okay. So everybody recalls that the reserve fund is a fund for which we are the gatekeeper. So the decision whether to make disbursements is on us. And I'm afraid I don't have the bylaw right in front of me, but it basically has to be, I think, best characterized as an ugly surprise, and otherwise unforeseen emergency expenditure. It's authorized by statute. Towns can create reserve funds. Cohasset has elected to do that, and the current balance is in the fund is $224,000, and that is the reserve fund until the end of this fiscal year, whereupon it will be funded at an amount approved by in the budget by town meeting. So Chris, you wanna go ahead?
So with us tonight is Nick Berardi, the Director of Facilities, Brian Joyce, the Director of Public Works. And I can have Brian and Nick go through the details, but just a quick overview. The library roof was just done. That had been funded. And when that work was being done, there was a look at the building's front, or I should say its exterior, its facade. It's all brick. And that assessment turned up some challenges. Including one that needs first that a more in-depth assessment needs to be done right away, because there's an area of brick that's already starting to bulge near one of the entrances that needs some bracing right away and repairs as soon as possible. At the same time, there are two areas that have become an ongoing real problem with drainage, and with the increasing amount of water we've had in the last few months, including today, they've become very problematic. One of them involves a drain that's pitched the wrong way, and one just doesn't drain the right way, I think. And Nick can explain this much better than I. And it's just causing ongoing damage. And we actually have a contractor that's available right now to get that work done. We have a plan. So you should have quotes on both of the drainage. They're small, but very, very significant drainage projects, and then improvement projects. And the other is the study. It's about $13,000 all in, for the assessment of the brick facade and the repair schedule and the quotes for repairs, including the specific area that needs work right away, which is on the Ripley Road side. And I will turn it over to Nick to more fully explain.
Thank you. Good to see everyone this evening. Yeah, so as Chris alluded to, one of the projects is on the front of the library, the Ripley Road entrance. There's a vertical brick wall above the door that has freestanding wing walls. and we noticed that one of them, the mortar was coming out a little more than you want to see, and it also started to have a little bit of a list to it back towards the building. So it was a little concerning. We had done some previous assessments that were unrelated to that, but I knew we had some pictures to go off of. So that assessment was done 3 years ago, give or take. We compared the picture to what it looks like now. And 3 years ago, it was perfectly straight up with not much deterioration. So it gives us a little bit of insight into how quickly it is deteriorating, which, being in the area that it is and being freestanding, is cause for concern. So we felt we need to start getting that repaired immediately. But as we started going through the entire building, the brick was never redone when that was made into the library from the previous Osgood School. So it's 80 years old. It's definitely served its purpose. And that being said, there are areas that are getting to the point where they're going to need to be repointed very soon. So getting ahead of things, being proactive, this assessment will give us an overall view of actual condition. They pull some of the mortar out and do sampling on it to see what kind it is, which will tell us some other things that will make it easier to come up with a game plan. But this first wing wall repair is the key, and this assessment will dig in, do some exploratory holes, tell us what kind of structures underneath, whether it needs to be totally taken down and rebuilt, or if they can do something different. That's why there's kind of an unknown with that repair until we get this assessment done. And the drainage problem has increased immensely in this past year, which leads us to believe that whatever water penetration that was happening, just it's getting in easier, and we need to mitigate how the water is being shed from the upper Ripley Road lot. If you know the recreation entrance in the upper lot at the library, there's a staircase right there. There's a downspout that's in that corner, and it has always just dumped right onto that staircase area. So hits that, splashes against the building, which isn't good. And the water has nowhere to go, so it pools at the bottom of that staircase, and the sidewalk is pitched back towards the building. So all that water has nowhere to go. It's been finding its way down against the foundation wall and coming up in the interior of the rec department downstairs. So, you know, we had that happen like once, and then you kind of chalk it up to it was a very bad storm or the water table was high. Now it's every time it rains. So the remedy for that is to bring a drain down to the ground, dig a trench, bury that drain, shed the water out to the side of the building. And when we repave the area that we had to dig, we'll pitch that towards the parking lot from the building. The lower area has two downspouts that empty directly onto the ground by the entrance doors to rec. If you notice over there, there's two other downspouts that go underground into piping and collect into a catch basin. So we are gonna mimic that. We're just gonna take the downspouts, go underground, and tee off into that same catch basin to mitigate the water that's coming in the thresholds of those doors during heavy rains. So this will alleviate a lot of the drainage issues we've been having in that building, which, as anyone knows, getting water in the interior of the building is not beneficial to anybody. It's going to cost a lot in the long run. So this will be a good fix. If there's any questions on any of these.
I think the most relevant question for our purposes are, well, working backward is, what amounts are needed to undertake the things that need to be done right now?
So the drainage repairs, the quotes for the lower lot were 3,836. The upper lot 9,000. And then some paving at 2,000. So total is 15,000 for both drainage areas.
And I'm not sure it's strictly relevant, but are these matters that for which there aren't appropriated funds available at this point to take on,
Correct.
to pay for? Okay. And I'm looking sort of desperately for the bylaw, and I'm not finding it on this very little screen, so I'm just going to wing it. I believe the standard that this was an unforeseen, I don't think unforeseeable, but an unforeseen occurrence. I assume you may have not beyond the realm of the possible, but you didn't, this was something that wasn't in front of you the last time we approved a budget in Springtown meeting, for example.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and any other water issues we had down there weren't attributed to this per se, but the consistency that it started happening this past recency, we really investigated, crawled through all the crawl spaces and narrowed it down that we could pretty much guarantee it was getting in through that area.
Okay, I think it's just important to say what you just said, to make the record that this is an appropriate use of reserve fund money. Does anybody else have questions for Nick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
may.
go ahead.
So Nick, I'm just I'm looking at the memo that was attached to the email, and so I see the request. 3 projects. So you just walked through the drainage, and then on project 1, which is I guess the assessment for the brick wall. Kind of back to Rob's question about this. It sounds like it's unforeseen. I guess I'm not sure what the ask is for project number 2, which is premised upon project 1. And if that's something, I don't know, Chris or somebody, is there free cash somewhere? Because project 2 sounds like it's going to be an outcome of a study, which tells me there ought to be, it's not necessarily an emergency.
Well, the as Nick said, they know what the problem is, right? But we don't know the answer yet, so they're going to brace it. That said, repairs are, so they're going to brace it. The question is, will the study tell you that you need to get this fixed right now? The reason we're not asking for funds for that repair, because we don't know the scope of it yet, and we don't know if it's something that can wait, right? If it's something that can wait, then we'll just wait till the spring. It's not never good to have the front of it, secured up looking bad, but it's safe at least. So we're not going to ask for funds for that until if the study comes back and says, fix this now, we'll come back to you and say, we need to get the money to fix this now. Otherwise, we'll just put it in the capital.
Okay, so the ask tonight is the 15,000 for project 3 and the 13,000 for project 1, so 28,000 total. And then from that, we'll, in some short period of time, hopefully find out exactly what the scope of the problem is and whether that then is a unforeseen issue or not, or can be held off on.
That's the plan. We actually talked about this in the capital meeting a week ago, and it's like, wait a second, is this really why we can't wait on this drainage issue, right? And we said the same thing about the brick, so it's like that's why we're in front of you now, to get this accelerated. We also have contractors on the drainage that are available right now, which is not always common. So and we also have the because it came as part of the roofing, they came with as part of the roofing thing assessment and identified the issue. We have a study that could start tomorrow once we have the funding. We actually have the quote and everything. It's with you have it. So there, and that can be done. What did you say, Nick? A month, 6 weeks? I forget.
Yeah. He said they need a nice week of weather just because they have to take some brick out and repair, so the weather needs to be a little warmer. So hopefully we get a random week that they can do that. And then 2 weeks after the actual on-site assessment, they'll have the full report with everything we need in there.
Okay, and supporting the wall, I mean, so the wall's bulging out a little bit. And so initially it's just to support it, and then obviously kind of continue to revisit that so there's not some bigger problem that happens.
Yeah, they're actually going to put a and forgive me, I forget the exact term, but they actually put like a monitoring thing to see if it's moved in the since they did the brace or anything, just to confirm it's staying put. So we'll put the temporary brace that's tied back into the building, put the monitor on, and that'll kind of ease our minds if it hasn't moved in a little.
Okay, yeah, because I guess hoping for 5 days of warm weather in the middle of January might be a tough ask.
Yeah, it's tough.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else?
Rob, I had a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike covered most of them. In terms, and I guess this is for Chris. Is there anything else that you foresee? So if we have $224,000 in the reserve fund and we're going to eat roughly 28 here, depending on this study, would you anticipate coming back to us potentially for the other project, and or do you anticipate anything else? There's actually a rumor all the way down here in Florida, by the way, that town hall was closed down. Heard that yesterday. So just curious if anything else might be coming down the pike for us.
So, yes, as we said before, if this study comes back saying fix this now, then we'll come back to you and seek the funds. If it says you should fix it, but you can get it done in the next few months, then we'll just make it part of the capital plan and we will make it a priority. I will defer on the others for the moment. So the answer is yes, there might be some other requests coming. Town hall is not shut down. Town hall is still open. That said, the building commissioners issued a decision saying that the building does not meet fire code. It was not constructed properly in the 80s. There are not proper fire separations. Again, nothing that was ever really assessed because we were never separating the buildings, right? We were never, kind of continue to occupy this for the long time. But because there's no longer any plan going forward to fix, there's not even a conversation right now about what the next step is. The building inspector felt increasingly uncomfortable running someone to take a look, and it turned out that the proper fire separations were never built in the 80s. And right now you couldn't do that anyway. You'd have to fire sprinkle the whole building. And we have to go to current code because they never followed the old code 40 years ago. So here we are. No, there's not going to be any ask to repair that building. There
Okay.
might be a need for an emergency funds for lease, but I think we'll be okay if we have to temporarily lease property or space, whatever that may be. There's an RFP on the street right now about that. I don't know yet.
I have a question. This brick wall, is this a veneer wall or is it a structural wall?
This is structural, so it's a freestanding portion of it's self-supported. So it's just probably the what would you say, Brian? Like,
yeah, I mean, so there's it's a veneer. So you have the brick wall, and then there's a little bit of an air gap, and you have it tied back to like a CMU, a concrete masonry type wall behind that. So that's more of the structure, and it is a veneer, but it also serves as like structure on the windows and such.
Yeah.
But it is old and it hasn't been pointed in quite a long time, so you have water intrusion through a lot of the joints.
Well, it's not going to get any better, so.
Right. So, and if I was surprised when Nick and I looked at this, he told me about that wing wall in the front. It's basically over the book drop at the front on Ripley Road where those wing walls are just, that are freestanding, they're just kind of leaning back towards the building. So you don't want those falling,
Thank you.
particularly if you were dropping off a book.
Is the assessment, is that just isolated to this area, or is there more of a comprehensive assessment around the entire building? Is it part of this 13,000?
Yeah, this 13,000 is the entire exterior of the library. So this is going to give us a very good look at the entire building, so we can prepare for the future and get the rest done as well.
And so that $30,000 estimate that we have to repair the wing walls by the book drop, we could be surprised by other areas that are not highlighted right now. But after the survey and assessment, we could be alerted of some other issues as well.
Yeah, the 30,000 was kind of based on a very rough, contractor from the ground looking up, just saying, don't quote me, but depending on what needs to happen, you're looking around that. And then I don't foresee any glaring needs to pop up on the rest of the building. We know there are needs. It's going to be repointed at some point, but I don't think in an emergency fashion, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question. Was that when the library was created from the old school building, were the bricks ever sealed? Did they ever put any sort of a silicone seal on the outside layers, surface of the bricks?
No, I think they just did some pointing around where they put in kind of new fixtures and windows and things like that. The rest of the building that was untouched as far as like penetrations is the original.
Yeah, so it probably has never had any sealing. Okay, thank you, Brian.
And to Mary's point earlier, I think this will get us, this ask tonight should get us through the 5 months to, we get the assessment and then we get to town meeting with a better view and hopefully a town meeting article to get the rest of it. But I think as far as this building goes, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we should be coming back for the library to advisory on any of these emergency things. And I think the wing wall at the front is really the most glaring emergency. I don't think the report will give us an assessment of the entire building, but we've walked the roof line, we've walked the perimeter of the exterior building. We don't see any kind of glaring things like that front wing, other than the drainage.
So, specifically, what should we be thinking about in terms of a vote? Are there two parts to this? Should we do this much, up to this much, but not to exceed X, where X is, a pretty good estimate of what you'd think you'd need. And if there was something radically wrong with that, we can always come back, but it's not that cumbersome.
Yeah, that's the ask, Rob, would be, again, so you saw that the 13th, because they're different, the drainage is very different than the building assessment, right? So the exterior assessment it's 10,000 plus 500 plus 2,500, because that was the estimate for the assessment is 10,000, but there's some equipment they may need to get on site, and then there's as Nick said, the assessment of the mortar and all that stuff. So the estimate up was 13. It's 10 plus 5 plus a guesstimate of 2,500. So the 13,000 should be up to that for the whole study.
Up to 13, or do we want to say up to 15?
Yeah,
Just to provide.
If you want to do that, that's,
headroom.
I won't. The money will go right back. If that's spent, you get it right back.
Exactly. So,
That's fine.
okay. So 13 or 15, whatever the committee decides, and then the other part.
The other part was two put together. It was the 9,000 plus the 3,000, and then rounded up to 15 just to give some room for the sidewalk patch and the asphalt patch that has to be done. We just don't know how extensive that will be. Again, I think again, Brian or Nick can correct me if I'm wrong. I think 15 gave them enough comfort level. It's it's like 12 or 13 plus another 2 is what it came down to. Was that, I think, right? Is that enough to be comfortable?
Yep.
All right. Does anybody have any additional questions about the cost? We can structure a motion and then see if there's any further discussion. Anybody?
No.
Great. Okay, then, I think a motion, we can probably do it all in one motion to approve expenditures from the reserve fund in the following amounts. Funds not to exceed $15,000 for payment for costs of the study relating to brickwork at the library, and 2 funds not to exceed $15,000 for, why don't we call them, emergency repairs relating to water infiltration, unless there's a better word, at the library.
Why don't, perhaps just to say drainage repair, or is that too simplified?
It's fine with me. Does anybody?
I think we should identify where the area is in general, that covers the whole library for that. Let's
Okay.
identify the location where you want to spend the money.
How would you say it? Front
The,
facade?
yeah, the front facade and where the book drop.
So the drainage is in the south, I would call it the southeast corner. I don't know, Nick.
Yeah, you could also say, just because it is that particular department's area, but it is the upper and lower recreation entrances. It's the only 2 entrances.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, when you go into the library, that main door, you usually go in on the side parking lot. It's that corner that's to your left.
Yeah.
That's where the water's dumping in. So that's south.
Natural trap.
South side.
So then the motion, just to make sure that it gets in the minutes right, is advisory committee approves expenditure of funds from reserve fund for use as follows. 1, an amount, excuse me, exceed $15 for related to a we're calling a study. What's the right way to put it?
It's an assessment.
Assessment of, we just say the brickwork, or is there a better way to put it?
And the brick facade of the building, is that a way? Yeah.
Works for me. Brick facade of the library. And 2, costs not to exceed $15,000 for a study relating to drainage and water infiltration on the say the southeast side of the library.
It's actually
Yeah, I
a
would just say
repair problem.
that's actually the physical repairs. There's no study in that
I think
to affect the repairs.
And Rob, did you say 15 or 13,000 for the
I think
assessment?
Rob's frozen out. He seems to have locked it in place there. Do you want to, as Vice Chair Mary, oh, he disappeared. Oh, there he is. No? Is he back?
Yeah, he is. We can't hear you though, Rob. You're on mute. It's hard to do this on a phone.
Yes.
I apologize. This all started when I walked out of my office with all my papers and not my laptop. So where did I disappear? Did I finish the wording of the motion?
We're on the second part of the second project rather, and there was just some clarification because you mentioned a study and there is no study. It's just repair work for the drainage.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was hung up on the first one. Repairs related to the drainage and water infiltration on the southeast side of the library. Does that work? Is there a better way to say it?
Yeah, not to exceed $15,000.
Yeah, that was at the time, because not to exceed $15,000 for repairs relating to. Good. Okay. Somebody want to actually make that motion?
And was
Go ahead, Mark.
the brick assessment, was that, did you say 13 or 15,000 for that one?
I said not to exceed 15. Why don't we get a motion and a second? If we want to make some changes, we can.
Okay.
Somebody want to move my wild expenditure of $30,000?
Don't move.
Fran, a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, amendment, anything? Mark, are you good with not to exceed 15?
Yep.
Great. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion, so let's have a vote by roll call. Gina Stino,
Gina Stino, aye.
Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
and Rob Hillman. Aye. Just, yes. Okay, so the ayes have it. Gents, thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you very
thanks
much.
for taking care of this issue. Good, excellent. So, that was our primary bit of business. I'm cognizant of the fact that we only have a diminishing amount of Mary, and I'd like to get through a couple of these things on her, while she's with us. Jean, go ahead.
Did we make a motion and move the $13,000 for the assessment study?
Yeah, we
Without-
moved it. It was all one motion.
Okay, so for $30,000,
Correct.
okay,
Correct. 15, not to exceed 15 for the assessment, not to exceed 15 for the repairs.
okay.
So, Chris, just sticking to our agenda, can you give us the shortest conceivable, possibly haiku version of an update on town finance and budget matters?
There was money. No, I'm sorry. I have to go through. I have to go 575. I think. So it'd take me too long to haiku. So we're because of a town meeting being June 3rd, we have the calendar's about a month behind normal. So where we are is this: operating budgets are in production. They're going to be presented internally. We're going to go through them, and we'll be presenting them to the select board on February 27th. That'll be the draft budget. The schools are on their regular calendar. They haven't changed. So they're in the process of having, I think they either had or about to have their workshop, their public workshop. And they're going to be presenting their budget publicly, have their public hearing on the 13th, and adopt their budget on the 27th of March, which is good. That's actually allows for plenty of time for discussion and consideration. So the operating budget's in production, and February 27th. I hasn't made it a joint meeting. You can, if you want to make it a joint meeting, that's fine. Or you folks can just come and watch and listen and ask questions. We have time to figure that out, and then basically you'll have the next month to chew on that. So probably we'd be good to schedule that in advance so we know what departments you want to have up first, since we have enough time to schedule that. The capital plan is also in production. That's going to be presented to the select board first. Perhaps as early as next week, and if not next week, the 23rd of January. And you should all have the schedule that I sent around. I think hopefully you all got that. So again, you folks are most certainly welcome to be part of any of those meetings to review and consider. One of the questions that's open, because the select board hasn't formally adopted the policies for the two new funds, is having a joint public meeting among capital and the school committee and the select board to talk about spending requests for the road and school stabilization funds. We're kind of rolling those into the consideration as we do with the capital plan. So we've already talked about those. The schools, as I have already met with us informally to go over their current requests. So I think that's all coming along fine. So the plan is to have that all done in January, either the 23rd or 30th. And then the goal is to have the capital budget committee complete its review over 60 days. So they'll be done by the end of March. And I think we need to be on clocks this time a little bit different. It's like, it shouldn't take 6 months to review the projects. And again, if we go into this process knowing here's what it is, we can book out meetings, and again, there may be weather changes and stuff. We can make things work. The capital plan is not terribly complicated this year. There's some big projects in it, but it's not, because of the extra room, because of the roads money and the school facilities fund, there's a little more, it's a little more comfortable. We're not trying to squeeze quite as much in the same pot from the first conversation. So that's where we are on that. The goal would be to have this all done by the end of April. And it was about a month later than normal. And then have all the warrant recommendations by May 3rd, so that everyone can get this at home by May 24th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day, and then town meeting is June 3rd. And
Okay.
just, the citizen petition deadline is a little later this year. It's March 20th, just because it's 75 days before the town meeting. So we're going to be having a session for anyone who wants to meet with council in February. The only one I'm aware of in that regard is there's a group that wants to ban single-use water bottles. So less than a certain size. I think that's happened at Hingham already. It's happened in some other places. So that group, I believe, is going to be coming forward with a plan to ban single-use water bottles.
Okay. So, I just, like I said, I want to try and get through a couple of things while we still have our players. We had talked about liaison assignments earlier, and I think there was a draft list of those, which I'll recirculate, and we'll sort of figure out who goes with what. I think probably, unless people want to make changes, it'll follow pretty closely last year's with a few changes. But we are required by our bylaw at our first meeting in every calendar year to reorganize, and that is on our agenda. And I am term limited as of June 30 of this year, for better or worse. So we need to select a chair, and we need to select a secretary. Now, the secretary job should be less of a white elephant than it's been in the past, since we now have a professional preparer of minutes. So that may, somebody may feel a little bit better about volunteering for that. I'm not sure what remains in the job description. And it's been a while since we've done this, but typically we take nominations. So do I have any nominations for the position of chair?
I would like to submit Gina Sino as a nomination for chair. Having worked with her on the school committee, I think she would be outstanding.
Thank you.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second for Jean. Do we have any other nominations? Excellent. Well then, Vote by roll call. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Gina Stino,
Aye. Sorry.
that's Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, I.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
and Rob Hillman. I am an aye. With my very, very fondest wishes, and I've enjoyed doing it, Gene. I hope you have as much fun with it as I did. I think we did a lot of good work on this committee, and I'm very, very, very happy to have worked with all of you, which I will continue to do for the next 6 months until I'm out of a job by operation of law. But that said,
I have two questions.
yes,
So when is this effective? After your term is up?
it is effective right this minute.
Oh, snap.
I was just going to show you this
Oh, yeah,
gavel and
I had one of those for 9 years. Thank you.
that Helene Lieb dropped off at my house one day 4 or 5 years ago, and I have never used it at a live meeting. I've conducted almost never a meeting other than the ones at town meeting. So and I think we've done a really, really effective job as a committee that I don't think we'd have as good a group as we would have if we had to be down at town hall every 2 weeks. So, if you like, Gene, I can, as your designee, I can just take this meeting through its end.
Yes, please. But I do have
thought so.
question number two.
Yes,
Question number two is vice chair.
that is correct. And that would be I neglected to mention that, but that would be our next vote.
Okay, great. Because you said you jumped right from chair to secretary. So just wanted to be clear.
Yes, I did. That was my last incompetent act as chair. Do I have a nomination for vice chair of our committee? Well, I'm going to nominate Mary McGoldrick, best vice chair ever.
I would second that.
Second.
Always
Any
the bridesmaid.
say that again?
It said always the bridesmaid.
You had your shot, Mary.
Hearing no others, vote by roll call. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Mike Barclay,
Aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, I.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Rob Hillman, I'm an aye too. Mary, thank you for your service. I am not sure that there's much of a job for the secretary anymore. Maybe making sure that kind of supervising the process of getting the minutes filed, but I know that that's taken care of by our minutes person. But we should have one. So is there somebody who, and I'd be perfectly happy to listen to self-nominations for this job, or we can simply elect somebody who didn't show up for this meeting in the time-honored tradition of giving out bad jobs. Is there anybody who's up for it? Or we can let it go to another meeting if you like. Anyone? Bueller? Hearing none, the issue dies for want of a nominee. Gene, at some point, you're gonna need to find a secretary.
Sure, we can put it on the next agenda.
Yeah, it's less crucial than it used to be due to the towns. I don't believe we have any minutes that require approval, or at least none that are available. We'll take another look at that. I did not anticipate there are no issues that I did not anticipate more than 48 hours, so that's not a thing, which brings us to everybody's favorite motion. For a motion to adjourn.
Can we just discuss the next meeting, the timing for the next?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do we think?
Okay, so this is the 10th. So maybe. Is there a reason to have another meeting before the 31st?
Chris?
No, actually, if you go to that point, you're gonna be able to get reports on the capital plan and the road and school stabilization funds on the 31st, so that might not be a bad night to. And then you can, at that night, you can set up your schedule for February, March, and April.
Right. Okay, so we'll say January 31st. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
I'm not available, but I'm unavoidably unavailable. So, but it can't be rescheduled around that. They'll accommodate me. So go ahead without me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I won't be available until it'll be February 12th or so.
Oh, okay, because the 7th would be the next.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, it's I've just got a commitment that's gonna take up too much time, and I don't want to delay the work of the committee.
Okay.
If I can dial in, I will, but
Okay. All right, so we'll plan on January 31st. So if everybody wants to mark their calendars, that would be great. And then we'll send you any other information that we need for the meeting. And Rob, you're still handling things. Fran has his hand up.
Fran, what can we do for you?
Well, I'd like to thank you for your great wisdom, both municipal and judicial, and the great education that you've afforded me, and I think the rest of us too. You've done a great job as chairman, and I really appreciate it very much. Thanks a million.
Well, thank you. It's very kind to be.
Thank you.
No, thanks. All right. Then I suppose the 31st it is. Jean, we'll talk offline. I'll send you some files and stuff
Okay.
that might be helpful to you. And most of which you probably already have, but just a few things that I kind of lean on. And we'll have a good season getting through another budget cycle.
Great.
And feel free
Very
to reach
good.
out to him, and Tracy serves from my office as a point of support for like getting agendas posted.
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Happy
thanks
New
very
Year,
much.
everybody, and thank you, Rob, and thank you, Jean.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Don't we need the motion?
Motion.
We actually haven't actually done it yet.
My
No, we need
last
Somebody shirking his
screw up.
responsibilities.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? I heard
Motion
one
to
from Mark.
adjourn.
Second.
Second? Been seconded. Gina Stino,
Gina Stino, aye.
Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Rand Collins,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
and Rob Hillman. I am an aye. Did I get everybody? I believe I did. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thanks very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Have a
everybody.
good
all.
night. Bye-bye.